It's Monday. That means it's J Leman Day here on the Illini Inquirer podcast. We get to chat about a 43-27 win for Illinois at Purdue. Back-to-back years winning the Cannon for the first time since 2002. Illinois 5-1 at the midway point. Of course, they're hosting number one Ohio State. We will dive into all of that. But Jay, not the cleanest performance. As we said, 5-1. You win the Cannon. Beating Purdue has been very, very difficult. So you can't take these for granted, even if we can now nitpick at this point of the Illinois football program.
You're 5-1. You're moderately healthy among most positions. I know the back end has struggled. And guys, it's a rivalry game, and winning on the road in the Big Ten, winning home games in the Big Ten is hard, right? Everybody's got players, and coaching staffs are different year to year. Penn State found out that. Washington about found that out as they had a miraculous comeback against what looks to be a pretty good Maryland team. So like this stuff happens. Sometimes it doesn't look like you want it to look. And long term, we can talk about this. It's probably not the way that Brett wants to win games long term, just trading scores back and forth and outscoring people, because he has a quarterback and receivers do that this year. But we'll take it. There's a lot more positives than negatives, and you'd rather be Illinois than Purdue. There's been many years we've been on the other side with Purdue, with the mistakes they made, whether it's you get momentum and you fumble a punt, or you have an open receiver and you drop a pass, or you miss a tackle, or guys sometimes wide open in space, guys run into each other. So we've seen that movie before, and I know they don't like to use the word rebuilding in Purdue, but certainly in those stages right now.
And Jay, like that is another step in the program where Illinois made a lot of mistakes at Indiana, but against Duke, which that win is aging pretty well right now as they go through ACC play, against Purdue, you are taking advantage of the miscues. Even USC with their penalties, right? I thought they had so many penalties that really hurt them. You're at that point of the program where more often than not, the other team is making more mistakes, and you have the offense that could take advantage of it.
And you have some veteran players that are being intentional about creating turnovers, whether it was Dylan Rosiak with the punch out, great punch out, right before he did it. I thought it was Sabor, but I think it was Ashton Hollins that actually punched the ball out. And he's a guy that's kind of flashed every now and then too in games. You're like, okay, well, there's some more depth there. And so you make plays there, and then you have kind of I look at Illinois as a team. You've got about one or two guys at each position where you feel really good about. We know about Luke, right? We know about Khalil really coming into his own, and we'll talk about him more, maybe taking that number one job the way that he's running the football. You've got Beatty and Colin Dixon, and then probably J.C. Davis has been your most solid on the left tackle position. And then defensively, you've got Gabe, and then Rosiak, and then I think Juice Clark, right? So you have these players but that are playing at a high level. But what's difficult is we haven't seen all that come together at all of the different positions. And so I really thought that, and I texted you this earlier this weekend, was Illinois was really a wash at all positions other than quarterback and receiver. They played at an elite level at quarterback and receiver. I think Luke had 2 drops that I counted. Valentine and Bowick was a drop. I know he had 3 incompletions. I'm trying to think the other one that was an incompletion. That doesn't really come to my mind. But even on the flea flicker, which was kind of a busted flea flicker play, he put on the money to Bowick. Valentine dropped one in space. He would have been like 21 of 22 for 400 yards if those guys catch it. So we had a quarterback and receivers that really outplayed. Other than that, we probably played pretty even with them with the turnovers and whatnot. Turnovers being the difference.
You texted me, Jay. Luke is playing out of his mind right now. Why specifically do you say that? Because I think everyone knows he's playing great, but why do you, All-American linebacker, say that right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, you made a good point with Wagner podcast, after the game. A great listen for all you guys. I mean, first of all, if you guys do that like an hour and a half, 2 hours after the game, after you've worked for like 8 hours, is pretty cool. But why isn't he getting more attention? You asked that question, right? And I have to ask that question too, because you look at the efficiency, the completion percentage, the yards, and I've certainly taken care of the football. But number one, you want your quarterback to be a guy that the team looks to, like, we need help. Can you make a play? He is that guy. Okay. Like, people can say all they want about Tim Tebow not having a huge arm or maybe not being but he was the guy. If you needed to play, you wanted Tim Tebow on your team. Luke Altmire has that kind of vibe where, hey, I'm going to go put the team on my back. I've got 7 or 8 game-winning drives. under my belt, and I can do that. And even when you're in trouble, maybe get down 7-0 on the run on the road, or like we were in this game, he can make a play. So I think number one, it's that. Number two, he's taking care of the football. And number three, he's extremely accurate. Again, I always think that accuracy is such an overlooked. People talk about completion percentage. Yes, that has to do with accuracy. I get it. But his accuracy to put the ball on the numbers, in some pockets that maybe aren't the cleanest, he was pretty clean, but sometimes he'll throw it sidearm. Sometimes he uses his feet to get a better throwing lane. This is where I really have said, this is where he reminds me, and again, I'm not saying he is this, but Drew Brees, not a big guy, but not an overly strong arm, but very, very accurate. The most accurate passer we've seen in the NFL was Drew Brees. And Luke, to me, has that ability to be very accurate, and an underrated attribute, because I've played with different quarterbacks, is a very catchable ball. Wes Lunt had a very catchable ball. Juice Williams, on the other hand, did not have a catchable ball. Brett Favre, another guy that I played with at the Vikings, did not have a very catchable ball. Now you got used to it, right? I mean, those guys would zing the ball at you. And so what I like about Luke's ball, it's very catchable, and you'll have less drops overall when you have a ball that's catchable. And then lastly is, does a quarterback make other football players around him better? And I would say Hank Beatty would not be the player he is without Luke Altmire. Certainly Colin Dixon. And I think like Caden Fagan's receiving might be one of his strongest suits of his game right now. And so I think he's made everyone better. And so those are some of the things that I see when I watch it. And his processing time is boom, boom, boom. His ability to get through reads. You know, we made fun of him a little bit, gave him a hard time 2 years ago. There was a 56K modem for you millennial kids. Like we thought he upgraded to, like, you know, the Comcast wireless or T3 or whatever they had it back in the day last year. And now he's like straight up fiber optic. I mean, the guy really is just boom, 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 and getting through his progressions fast. So it's a long-winded answer for a guy who's playing at a very high level.
I mean, there were some obviously Purdue busts that Luke just took advantage of, but you have a quarterback that can take advantage of those. But then there were, and we'll go over this in the film room, Jay, there's NFL throws to NFL open receivers, right? The one to Beatty, the one to Dixon, those are pretty good coverage that Luke just drops it into a bucket.
Right.
So I was talking about this with Wagner. It's like, I get maybe why he's not talked about like Mendoza or Dante Moore. Sure. There's some physically talented guys, but you played with NFL teams. You earned some NFL paychecks. What does he have that those guys have, and what does he still need to prove, do you think, to be a guy who can be in the NFL for a long time?
Well, one thing, I think he's got a great release. I don't think we talk enough about his release. I think he gets the ball out quick. You don't see much of a windup with him, and he has the ability to just kind of flick it. I'm not going to say his arm strength is Josh Allen. I watched Josh Allen last night, and it's just like, you know, just kind of wings it out. Nor do I think his release is up there with Aaron Rodgers', you know, legendary release, but he's got a good release. His deep ball being high and outside into the bucket, we saw that with the Hank Beatty play. We saw that with Colin Dixon as well. So he can make all the throws that you want him to make. He has enough mobility to escape bad situations, get some yards. But I also think he makes some of these more difficult throws that maybe you don't think are that difficult. Like, you really got to rep banging that RPO slant a lot to hit it on the upfield number like he does, and give a chance for your guy to catch the ball and not have a PBU from the defensive back coming to the back. We saw Ryan Brown really struggle with that throw. He probably missed 4 or 5 slants because they were just off a little bit. Yes, they hit the hands of the receiver, right? I know they should catch it. But you're playing with college receivers here. They're 18 to 22-year-olds. They're not going to be the most consistent. I think that Luke is very consistent in what he's doing. I also think the difference between week 2, and credit to TJ McMillan and Kreutz when he's in there, is he's really been able to step up in the pocket, okay? I thought in Duke during the first half, he was not. That really struggled. But since then, he has been able to step up in the pocket. Outstanding Indiana, which nothing was working, right? But being able to step up in the pocket against USC and against Purdue. And what you see is his vision to really understand who's coming open and what's going to be open. And they've got some bread and butter plays. I mean, how many more times are they going to be able to run Beatty with a dig into the sideline and run a receiver deep? That's what, and Clement was the receiver this time, but they did that with Colin Dixon in the Indiana game. It's the same play that Beatty caught the pass against USC, right? They run this play a couple different times out of different looks that they are feeling really, really comfortable about. It's kind of like that deep dig that Pat Bryant would do over the middle of the field. We saw him seal the Michigan State game with that. We saw him win Rutgers with that route. So they find routes that are good and chemistry with their receivers that have worked. And now we're seeing them all play at a different level because there's synergy between the receivers, offensive line, and the quarterback.
Receivers are a real strength. Like we spent all this oxygen in the offseason talking about it.
Yeah.
And boy, and they did too. Like, looks like I got to see who my alpha is. I got to see who steps up. And they were kind of saying the same thing. It was really up and down. But Hank Beatty's obviously turned into a star. No one can kind of cover him right now. And Illinois is doing a great job, obviously, Jay, of finding ways to get him open. But I think we shouldn't overlook Colin Dixon. He is really producing the last couple of weeks. He's number 15 in the Big Ten in receiving yards right now. So what have you seen from those guys other than Luke delivering? But how are they getting open, whether it's Barry, whether it's those guys? What are you seeing from that duo that's one of the better ones in the Big Ten right now?
Well, it seems like Beatty is definitely the motion man, right? And so, whenever you have a guy that the offense wants to get the football to, you have alerts all over the place of where he's at, and then you adjust off the motion. And many times they use Beatty as a decoy to kind of set up other receivers, right? So I think that's a big plus as well. I think what makes Hank really good is his feel for the game to set up routes. I mean, he's not the fastest guy. I don't think he's slow, but he's not like a burner, but his ability to set up routes against guys is pretty good. At the top of his route, you'll see him, do a little juke to the right, come left, and his body control is really, really good. So I think Hank Beatty, just an overall good athlete and football player. You see some of that quarterback, you see some of that running back kind of come out in him when he does that, and he's got elite hands. I don't think I've seen a drop or a bobble from Hank this year, and so that's something that we shouldn't overlook. And so he's wily out there for sure. With Colin Dixon Colin Dixon is a guy that I was surprised that got as much playing time as he did last year because it was a stacked receiver room, right? He played really over Beatty. I know that maybe they're different positions, but they had Colin Dixon in the slot a lot last year, right? Over Beatty. Shows you the versatility of Colin Dixon, but Colin Dixon really not a burner as well, but very strong, good blocker, and very, very good at contested catches like on the slant and being strong-handed to make plays. It felt like they weren't able to connect and be in sync early in the year. There's a couple of missed passes there, but the last 2 or 3 games, they've been great. And what we've seen is his ability to be good after the catch as well. With a long run at USC, and then, of course, it wasn't necessarily after the catch, but making contested catches. Colin Dixon is a guy that continues to impress. Not overly big, not overly fast, but a very solid football player who does a lot of things well for this football team. So I've been really impressed with their development too, because I don't think if you look at them on the roster sheet or you saw them playing in warmups, you wouldn't say, oh man, well, we're scared of this, but they're highly productive in what they do. And that's a credit to them as athletes, but also Justin Stepp, the receiver coach.
He's doing a hell of a job. I think Justin Stepp is doing a really, really good job, and South Carolina might have made a mistake there. I thought the offensive line was okay. Jay, I thought pass protection was pretty good with TJ McMillan in there. I thought he did a really nice job. But subpar in the running game. I thought Jamarian Harkless, former Illini commit, did really well against McMillan there. But what did you make of McMillan? Because it is nice that you have a backup who can go in and be capable and serviceable for you.
I mean, first off, it's always about exchange, right? The center quarterback exchange and the snaps. I really didn't see an issue with that. I mean, there's one drop snap. I think that was more Luke than anything. But, I was impressed that and of course, you're going to give up some plays. I think it shows you that McMillan's a guy that's going to be solid next year at center. You feel like, okay, you got game experience on the road against Big Ten. I liked what he did. I think we struggled, though, to get a push like we got against USC. We gave up too many negative plays. And again, and this is not just Brandon Henderson. I think our guards struggle more with movement than maybe other guards. I think they're more maulers that like to run right at you and maybe do better in scenarios like that, or at least that's what they seem to. I think they've struggled a little bit with movement, and that's a little bit what Purdue was doing. And I think J.C. Davis has been solid, especially in the pass game, but I just don't think our tight ends are blocking as well as they have in the past. I think Tanner Arkin, I think Caden Fagan, I think they need to block better. There's a play in the game that it looked like they missed a block. I love it when we ran this play a couple times against USC. Then we ran it on the goal line against Purdue. It's when everybody blocks down, the tight ends block down, and then Fagan runs off of it. And that seems to be working really well. I'd like to see more of that and just getting upfield. But Khalil Valentine, despite the negative plays, had 95 yards. So you're like, well, they gashed him sometimes. It was enough to keep him honest. But I feel like in order for us to control the game, to finish out games, we got stopped on 4th and 2. That could have ended the game right there. We're going to have to run the football better, especially when we play teams like Ohio State.
Yeah, Khalil's 22 carries really stood out to me. Caden, I don't think there was much for him to run through, to be honest with you. As you said, They just weren't getting downhill. So I wasn't as concerned about him. But the fact that Khalil got that kind of carries was notable, Jay, because he is a playmaker, right? Like along with Hank, he gives you a guy who's just explosive. So it makes sense that he's getting ramped up a little bit.
Khalil Valentine has taken that job. I love Caden Fagan. I think Aiden Lawford is a good football player. Khalil Valentine is taking the running back job. I know he's not. I know he's old. I know he's younger. I know that he doesn't quite have the size of other guys, and I know you can call it 1A or 1B. But if I had to pick one running back to be on my football team right now, and I can only pick one of them, I'd pick Khalil Valentine.
Yeah.
And so that's the reality of when you recruit really good, talented football players, right? You're going to have some guys that start to pop soon. And so Khalil Valentine, he's earned that job. He's earned those reps. He's taken that thing to a whole different level, as a whole different element for this offense. Of course, people are going to knock him for, the one fumble that he had, but other guys have had fumbles too. So, I mean, I really believe that he is the number one tailback for this team right now. No knock on Caden Fagan. Caden Fagan's probably your number one short yardage back. But when you watch the tape, and I'm a D coordinator, I got to be alert for number 5 because he's a difference maker and a change of pace for sure.
And like Chase Brown, he doesn't need perfect blocking, right?
No, he makes a lot of people right. I think that's a really good point, Jeremy, is that, if you get Fagan through the initial hole, man, he is a load, right? But if there's a mistake where somebody can make him cut in the backfield, it's going to slow his feet down. What I loved about probably his best run was probably in the first quarter. I know he had the touchdown, but Valentine, he really made number 5 for Purdue just completely miss in the hole, right? And can you make a guy miss in a phone booth? And I can tell you many linebackers, especially Midwest Mikes like myself, and I proudly take that moniker, would like to play a guy like Caden Fagan. We had a guy we played against. He's kind of like a J.U. Colcrick who played for Michigan State 20 years ago. Big guy. I'd love to play against those guys because I felt like, okay, I'm more strong than I am quick. And so you start to try to tackle a guy like Khalil Valentine. They're very, very hard to get a good hit on. Very, very difficult to get a good hit on because they're so slippery and they're always moving by the time you try to tackle them. So I think he's dynamic, and I think you're halfway through the season. I think he's the number one running back on this team. I really do.
And to your point, Jay, that's kind of why I like getting Caden Fagan in space. They tried to on the toss, it got blown up. But when you get him involved in the passing game a little bit more, like that screen pass a couple weeks ago, and he had 3 catches the other day, I think DBs really hate seeing him. So this
might be an unpopular take. I'm glad you said this because I know that when they were recruiting Caden Fagan, the thing was nobody talks to him about anything other than being a tailback. Okay. But I think Caden Fagan and Khalil Valentine are 2 of our best offensive players. I would love to see 20 personnel or 21 personnel. 20. What about this personnel? 20 personnel we get, which means 2 backs, no tight ends. Sometimes you have Fagan in there. You have Khalil Valentine. Then you can have Dixon. You could have Bowick. You could have Colin. You could have Beatty, and then you have some different matchup issues there. But here's what I think that I would like to see is that I think Caden Fagan still deserves carries. I'm not saying that's not getting the ball. He deserves carries. I would love to see him at an H-back position sometimes, though, to catch more balls because I think he's a really good receiver. That's not a demotion. I think he's a really good receiver. I saw him even catch that ball out in the flat, cut upfield and get 10 yards after the play, right? He's a really good receiver. So how do I get him 5 balls a game receiving and also get him 10 carries, and Valentine gets 15 carries? So I'm all about getting the best players on the field, and I certainly think they're 2 of our best players. I just think they have totally different run schemes and pass schemes that work well for them. So something to think about. I know it's been off topic. It's been banned to talk about Fagan as that. I'm not saying let's not take away his carries. Let's use him as a receiver more.
Like many of you, my wife and I, a little bit of coffee snobs. I mean, there's some nights you go to bed and you just go, man, I can't wait to wake up and have my fresh cup of coffee, right? But it's got to be a good one. And that's why my wife and I go to Columbia Street Roastery. They have freshly roasted coffee and all sorts of flavors. Try out their fall seasonal flavored coffees. They're right there at csrcoffee.com. It includes their pumpkin pie blend, which you can go check out right now. Columbia Street Roastery has a lot of different flavors, from your fall seasonal blends to your medium roast to dark roast. Go check it out at csrcoffee.com, where you can get free shipping on orders of over $45. And our listeners, you get 10% off your first order if you use code GOILLINI2025. So visit csrcoffee.com, get free shipping on over $45, and get 10% off your first order with code GOILLINI2025. Visit Columbia Street Roastery at csrcoffee.com. I want to get into this discussion about the defense. I'm fascinated with your thoughts on it, Jay, but I do want to give some time to the special teams because outside of Indiana, this special teams unit has been elite. Obviously, David Alano, 5 for 5 from field goals. He's fantastic, but you force another fumble on a punt. The coverage was fantastic. Andre Lovett is turning into one heck of a cover guy. Most metrics have this unit as a top 10 special teams unit. I saw one that had in top 5. You got to have that for Illinois right now, right? Like if you're gonna do well in the Big Ten, you have to have an advantage in special teams. And it looks like they do.
Well, I mean, what's Brett always say? Good teams run the ball, stop the run, and cover kicks. Well, right now we're mostly covering kicks, and we've stopped the run at times, and we've run the ball at times, but we're as consistent as can be on the special teams. And David Alano, the thing about it being a good kicker and a good snapper like Lane Hansen and a good holder is you take it for granted. It's like you only notice it when there's a mistake, right? And I hate that about it because he scored 19 points. It's like he's playing basketball, right? Be like, he scored 19 points in that game. David Alano, that's a lot of points. You only won by, what was it, 43-30 or something like that? I think 31?
27.
So, something like that. So 27. So those make a difference, right? So Alano's been great. Our coverages units have been fantastic. And that speaks to the depth and I think the level of player that they're recruiting and the athleticism that they're getting. I do think that they probably pooched it a little bit sometimes on kickoff to try to get some coverage in. That thought they could maybe score a few yards there. So it's great to see. I think Crimmins has been solid other than the block punt, right? Had a couple down inside the 10 or inside the 20. And so I really give a lot of credit to Coach Disher, but it's really a testament to the depth of this football team as well.
All right, Jay, the defense. My biggest thing is if you're going to play conservative, soft coverage, you better be able to tackle and you better not have coverage busts. And that's not happening this year. That is happening far too often. So if you're Aaron Henry and watch that film, like what are you thinking? And Brett Bielema too.
Well, I'm a little confused. So like 2 years ago, I think it's all understandable. Everybody's new, right? But you got some real veterans back there. And these are largely the same guys that were playing last year. Other than probably the guy who's been playing the most consistent, which is Juice Clark. He was limited in reps last year, but you feel like he's been the most consistent since he got back. He's got great length, seems to have a little bit of Spoon swagger to him. Witherspoon had some swagger to him. And so you like that. You feel like Cox has been consistent, but he hasn't been a shutdown guy at all. And then the safety play. it bothers me because you feel like Miles Scott is a really big leader, and Matthew Bailey is a leader as well. But the angles and the tackling just hasn't been good. It really hasn't been good. We've even seen Sabor Kareem, I think, get reps because of that. And maybe it's because they're banged up. So one I got to ask is everybody healthy? The question is probably not. Probably Matthew Bailey's a little banged up. Caleb Patterson's foot's banged up. Obviously, Xavier Scott, I think, was an eraser on that defensive backfield, meaning that he could erase a lot of mistakes, play a lot of different positions. But I'm with you. If you're going to play, I'm not going to call it prevent, but if you're going to play off and you're going to play zone and you're going to play soft, one, you got to tackle, and two, you've got to contest enough to give your front seven a chance, right? And I heard you say this as well, which I thought was a great point in the podcast, to let Gabe Akasi, to let James Thompson Jr., Angelo McCullum, who had a good game, make some pressure. Because right now we're seeing them set back, two-step drop, and bang it, right? And then we're not making tackles in space in the pass game or the run game. So it's frustrating to watch. And then you have Brett make a comment saying, I think I need to guide Aaron Henry more, I think was the comment, right? On something. So again, I don't know what that necessarily means, but maybe come up with a new idea, because Brett's a defensive guy, of how can we get this to a more serviceable defense. We challenged this defense. We thought this defense had to win us 2 or 3 games to be a playoff team. I thought they won us the Duke game. I don't think they've won us a game since. But they cannot get away with playing the defense they played last week against Ohio State. They'll score 40. And I don't think we'll score 40 if they score 40. So that's my thing.
So I'm looking it up right now, how much zone they played against Purdue, but it clearly was a lot. And they played 75% against USC, which I get. That passing offense is ridiculous. But I do like Jaheim Clark in man coverage. I think Torrey Cox is probably better in man coverage because he's so sticky, Jay. Do you have to lean into that more? Because I do think this defensive front is pretty good. I think they can get after the quarterback. People always asking, Gabe Akis isn't wrecking games. He wrecks drives when he has time to get after him. Yeah. After the quarterback, but they got to give them more time. I get frustrated just because it is 1-2 ball out for these other teams, and Illinois is not even contesting it. So can you roll the dice a little bit and try to go man coverage, especially against a team like Ohio State, who's got ridiculous receivers, but you got to get to that quarterback.
Well, I think they've done a decent job of disguising. Number one, they're a good disguise team, so it's hard to know what they're in. But number two is, you can run what I would call hybrid coverages. You can run 2-man, which means everybody underneath is man-to-man. Your corners and your linebackers are man-to-man on tight ends and slots and stuff like that. And then your safeties are kind of free to play zone over the top. So you can run a hybrid, right? So like maybe your safeties aren't great at man-to-man, but my corners are. 2-man's a good mix-up. We used to run a concept with Vontae, who was a great man coverage guy, where into the boundary, we would do man coverage because the boundary is the closest throw for the quarterback, right? So if you're off 10 yards as the boundary corner, that ball can get there quick. You may be able to be off 10 yards as the field corner because you have an extra half second before that ball gets there to break on the ball. So what if we did a hybrid where, hey, we're going to run man into the boundary and some sort of zone into the field. Now, Iowa for years has run something, they call it different things, but a cover 6, which we call, a quarter half, where you're going to play, to the field, you're going to play this quarters coverage, and back to the boundary, you're going to play this cover 2, because that cover 2 gets that corner up on that receiver. It takes away that quick slant. It takes away the quick hitch. And so do you do some kind of a hybrid defense like that? So it's not just like, oh, we're playing man, we're playing zone. How do we mix it up to our personnel? Sometimes that's 2-man. Sometimes we knew that Vontae could erase the best receiver, or Witherspoon could erase the best receiver on the field. You man them up and you play zone with everybody else. So those are some of the creative strategies that I would try to bring into it to at least take the first read away. If I can take the first read away and let the guy hitch one time, then you got to bank on Gabe Akis, Angelo McCullum, some guys getting there and affecting the passer. I thought they did that at times against USC, made Maeva move off the center, and he wasn't nearly as accurate once he moved out of the pocket. So those are some of the ideas I have. I don't know if I'm sure that they could implement some of them. Of course, I'm not a D coordinator, but just thinking about it, how can we placate to our guys better?
Yeah, it felt like at the beginning of the year it's kind of going half and half, zone and man. And I agree with you, pretty good at disguising it. But last couple of weeks, 87% zone against USC, 83% zone against Purdue. So it's just, I feel like they're getting a little bit more predictable. But I do feel like there's flashes of guys up front, Jay. I'll include JoJo Hayden in that. Is flashing.
He brought some pop, especially on the goal line.
Yeah, Joe Barna had a couple pressures. I do feel like you got some depth, and of course you got a dude in Gabe Akis, Tommy Wood, James Thompson. I think Leon Lowry's playing pretty well, so I just like to utilize those guys.
Yeah, I think for years we've just seen us have very limited depth and very limited players in the front. That hasn't been the case with Brett Bielema. He's done a good job of bringing in some really good players in the front, but we got to give them time to play and really impose their will on teams, and we just haven't done that. I know people are going to get mad about, Gabe's numbers and whatnot. Gabe actually had a sack on the 2-point conversion, but they didn't give him any credit for a 2-point conversion because it's on a 2-point conversion. So I just think he needs a little bit more time. I think you have
he's still been productive. He's still top 3, 4, 5 in the Big Ten in sacks.
All the time and disruptive, right? So it's not just, did I get sacks? Did I get sacks? I remember Urban Meyer said this about I think with Joey Bosa, somebody asked him just like, okay, why doesn't Joey Bosa have sacks this year? He's like, that's the last thing I'm worried about. I'm worried about disruption. Like he'll get his sacks. I want to see disruption. And I think
Gabe is 5 in the Big Ten in pressures right now. So
yeah, so it's like, okay, I mean, and it's the same with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons might not have a sack in a game, but man, he makes the quarterback move off his spot 4 or 5 times. You've got to chip him. You got to do that. But I think if you can get some interior pressures from an Angelo McCullum, from a Joe Barna and whatnot. And that's really when it gets fun. And I think that's what Seth Coleman had done previously, right? Had really brought some pressure off of the other side. And then if we are going to blitz, pick our spots. I know people are mad about the one play where we blitzed in that. And you're just trying to make a play because you're frustrated about not getting there. And then they hit you at the right time. So we definitely have to improve. But I think JoJo Hayden's been a good spot at linebacker. You've been waiting for Dylan Rosiak's been solid, but it seems like Hayden seems to be growing in that regard and getting more reps than maybe Hood or James Kreutz. And I wouldn't be surprised the way they talk about for Grant Bierman to slip into the starting lineup late in this season if injuries let him have a chance, just because they talk very, very highly of him. And you feel like you're not getting exceptional play out of the linebackers, that they're just not unbeatable.
Yeah. All right, Jay, you beat a number 1 ranked Ohio State team pretty famously. What is the feeling leading into a game like that? And once you take the field, I imagine it has to be different.
Oh, it's very different. I think first off, I think that the number one thing about a number 1 team or any top level team is you can play with them for a little bit, but there's these moments in the game, these turnovers, these big plays that it can go from being tied to them being up 21 points like that. And I give so much credit to our offense in that 2007 game, but we were like, they went through us like a hot knife. We had a busted coverage to Brian Hartline down the sideline. They scored within 2 minutes. Our offense came back and scored, responded. Then we gave up another score, 14-7, like in the first 5 minutes, and our offense came back and scored. And so I think we never be in this game. It was 14-14 for a decent amount of time until the end of the half, because we were able to weather that storm and respond. So number 1, you have to weather these big plays and big swings that good teams will do. You can hang with them, and then something happens and they take advantage of it. And then number 2 is, it sounds kind of cliche, but at the end of the day, football is a collection of everybody kind of doing their job. And I think sometimes you get into these games and you want to make a big play so bad. And it's almost like these teams know that, and they dial up stuff to make sure that your aggression makes you pay. And so I think
that happened last year, I thought, with Luke at Oregon, right? I thought he just forced some throws that he normally doesn't do.
I will tell you, it happened to us in the Rose Bowl. You look at that tape of the Rose Bowl, we came out and said nobody runs the ball on us. They ran 11 straight play action, Steve Sarkisian, to start the game. 11 straight. You think they weren't using our aggression against us? I would say so. 14 points later, 11 plays later, they're up 14-0. So like those are the things you have to be careful of. Is like, okay, what do they want to be? Let's use that against them, right? And so I think those are the things that you run into. And then at the end of the day, it's all about the ball in these games. Whatever it takes to get a turnover and to protect the ball, that is the great equalizer. And you're going to talk about it all week. You're going to talk about that, and you're going to talk about red zone and 4-point plays. People don't know what 4-point plays are. I should say, like, when it's like 3rd and goal, and like either they score or they get a field goal. That's a 4-point play to a defense. I mean, you kind of play this in your brain. I say, okay, it's a 4-point play. How do we win those 4-point plays? How do we get turnovers? And getting off the field on 3rd down, my gosh, it's so frustrating when you're able to maybe play good run defense and get in a 3rd and 8+ and then not get off the field. That's hard, especially when you're a ball control team like Illinois. What's been surprising to me the last 2 games is I'm not sure Illinois won the time of possession the last 2 games. I think Purdue won it. Maybe Purdue didn't win. I know USC won the time of possession. And so that's not who Brett wants to be. He wants to control the time of possession. It just hasn't been the case for us.
Also, when you have an explosive passing attack, out on the field as well.
We'll take points too. I mean, I'm not sure we're going to go the whole Kevin Wilson route at Indiana where they scored like 50 and gave up like 55. But, it is great to score points.
All right, Jay, this Ohio State defense is allowing 5 points per game. They are loaded again despite all these draft picks. Julian Sain has been a really effective point guard. And, of course, he's got Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Max Clare, Bo Jackson reincarnated in the backfield there. You mentioned some of the keys there, but what is the script of Illinois, having a chance in the 4th quarter against the number 1 team in the country?
So defensively, I think Max Clare is the biggest matchup nightmare we have because he was a menace against us when he played for Purdue. I know they have Jeremiah Smith. I think Juice Clark, I'm not saying Juice Clark is going to shut down Jeremiah Smith, but you look at the similar body types of length, and you're like, okay, we'll take it, right? Nobody's been able to shut down Jeremiah Smith. I really worry about Max Clare because that's going to be safeties guarding him. And on the play action, the dig routes, the go routes, we struggled against, I want to call him Barner. It's not Barner because I'm thinking AJ Barner, whoever 87 was for USC, good football player.
McCree,
yes,
McCree, yeah.
Yes. We struggle with him, and I think it's going to be similar stuff like that. They're going to see that on tape. I think Max Clare is going to catch some balls. So I think matchup-wise, that's going to be difficult. Defensively, Ohio State hasn't necessarily run over people, but they've been serviceable in the run game. You always want to make teams one-dimensional, and I want to put Sain in a pressure spot. This guy really hasn't had a game where it's on the line and he's got to make a throw, right? They were up against Texas. They played well on defense. You hear about Ryan Day saying, we don't want to put Julian Sain in these positions. We don't want to put the game on his shoulders. I think you want to put the game on Julian Sain's shoulders and say, okay, show me you can go win this game. Because if there's one advantage that Illinois has, it's we've got a way more experienced game quarterback. I'm not saying we have a better quarterback, although I think you can make the argument we do. We have a much more game experienced quarterback, and that is really going to be critical in this football game. And I also think your ability to run the football on this Ohio State front seven, I think your linebackers are probably better than last year. I don't think their D-line, they were loaded on the D-line last year. I know they reloaded. But can we run the football? What's been surprising about Illinois is that against really good D-lines, they've run the ball, whether it be Michigan last year, whether it be USC this year. Against average D-lines, they've struggled some. So can you keep away from the negative plays, and can you protect Luke Altmire? That's the number one thing going in is can't get that guy hurt. We can't leave that guy out to dry with blindside hits, okay? We got to protect our best football player.
UCLA beat Penn State. I can't believe it, Jay. And it was just kind of a reminder as we're soaking in that Illinois win over Purdue. That wasn't the cleanest. Like, oh, yeah, these things happen, especially on the road. I can't believe that, Jay. Kudos to the UCLA staff. Kudos to Nico, who had a great game in there. But, a hangover after a loss to Oregon, injuries, that does not explain what just happened in LA. Like that. how does James Franklin come back from that?
I don't know. I mean, it really showed the inability for them to actually come back in a football game. It's like if they have Katron Allen and Nick Singleton and they can be even with you or be up on you, they can kind of grind you to death, kind of like they did to Illinois last year. They got behind. I mean, I think there was like the first 15 plays, I mean, between the scoring and the onside and different things, they got behind like 14 other than 24-7. And then what was shocking to me was Andy Kotelnicki didn't even really try to score in the 2-minute drill before the half. I mean, it was literally like run the ball, try to throw it on fourth down, get sacked. And they have a real issue throwing the football right now, which is shocking to me with a fourth-year quarterback and the athletes that they have and the creativity of Kotelnicki. So, and then the fact that Jerry Neuheisel had been calling plays for 2 days and then went against Jim Knowles, the mad scientist, and dropped 42, that still shocks me too.
Can't believe it.
With a lot of quarterback run, I understand. But and Nico's a gifted guy, but at the same time, it's shocking. Where does James Franklin go from here? You know, I heard Nicole Auerbach say this on TV, which is they can't buy him out, but it may just be best if he just stepped away from Penn State and got a fresh start. The big game James thing has just really haunted him. It didn't help for years. He was in the Big Ten East with Urban Meyer and Jim Harbaugh. That's tough. Every year having to play them, and didn't do great other than the 2016 game where they blocked the field goal and had some win, but they just against Ohio State. But he just hasn't won the big game. And I think if you're Penn State, when you felt like this was the year, you went and paid big money to probably the two top coordinators at each in offense and defense, and you don't get the win. Oh, it's brutal. Now, do I think Penn State, if they win out, which is a big if because they still got to play Indiana and whatnot, they'll be in it? Yeah, because they're program X, right? And they will, they're a premier program. But I do not see them making the playoff this year. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow when you spend the money they spend on coordinators and you have the players that they have about what's going on.
Last one for you. Indiana, Oregon. Hoosiers going to Autzen. What do you think of that matchup? That's a massive one. I've
been saying this. I think Indiana wins this game. I know people think that's crazy. Do I think Oregon's good? Yeah, but I mean, they went into Happy Valley and probably shouldn't have won that game. Probably the way they were playing and whatnot. They certainly weren't that explosive for a Penn State team that just got beat by UCLA. I know you can't compare apples to oranges. I get that. But you know that Cignetti's going to have them prepared. You know you still got a matchup with Surratt and Omar Cooper on the outside, and Mendoza can sling the ball probably better than Dante Moore, probably obviously less mobile. The sheer number of athletes that Oregon has is greater, but I would say the starters for Indiana, I'm not sure where their depth's at. Got some good players. Got an All-American linebacker, Nate Fisher. The safety, Moore is a good player. D'Angelo Pons is a good player. Kamara is a good player. Tyreek Tucker, Landino, they look like all-stars against us, but they've been solid football players on the defensive side. And I like Cooper and Surratt as well. And Roman Hemby's been playing well. So, I mean, Coogan at center. They got good players for Indiana. And so I think this is going to be the game where everybody's going to be like, oh, Cignetti's the real deal. Not that he isn't the real deal now, but if he beat at Oregon, I mean, that's the real deal.
Jay, here we go, 5-1, going into a game against the number one team in the country, and a much-needed off week after that for Illinois. But pretty good spot for this program to be in, despite a really terrible loss at Indiana.
Phenomenal spot. And you look at the last, I think 3 of the last 4 losses we've had have been against top 10 teams, whether it's Penn State and Oregon last year, and then we had obviously the loss against Indiana, who is currently a top 10 team. Certainly wasn't when we played. We were the top 10 team. So it seems like for the most part, we're winning the games that we're supposed to win. Can we really take the next step? And this is the next chance, I would say, when you play Ohio State, to kind of put yourself in that upper echelon and probably get back into the top 10 if you win this game. This would probably be the biggest home win in program history if you were able to do that. Now, I know there's Illinois, Michigan in 83. I know in 1956 they beat somebody, I don't know, it was Michigan State or whoever in 1956 who was the number one team. But this would be one of the biggest wins ever, obviously, and to beat the number one team. But home win for sure.
J Leman, do the goods. We'll talk next week, man.
You got it.